I want you to listen to me very closely, for what I am about to share may challenge the very way you have seen yourself, your struggles, and your defeats. There are two kinds of men in this world. The first kind is broken by every storm. When life strikes, he bends and never rises again. He accepts misery as destiny, failure as identity, and limitation as truth. The second kind walks through the same storms, but while the winds tear at him, he grows roots. While others fall to their knees, he stands taller. He is not lucky, nor born gifted. He has simply mastered the greatest art known to man, the art of directing his own mind. You see, my friend, there are no permanent defeats in life, only minds that accept them. Two men can face the same hardship. One curses it, the other conquers it. The difference between them is invisible to the eye, but clear to the spirit it is mental attitude. I have walked among men who were giants not because of their height or their fortune, but because of the calm, unshakable strength with which they met every blow of life. Men like Andrew Carnegie, who built empires from nothing but faith and vision. Thomas Edison, who turned failure itself into a stepping stone to genius. They all shared one trait, an undefeated mind. An undefeated mind is not one that never doubts, never fears, or never falls. It is a mind that, even when surrounded by darkness, keeps its inner fire burning. It is a mind that commands itself, that refuses to surrender its thoughts to circumstance. The difference between a broken man and a strong one is not education. It is not wealth. It is not luck. It is the discipline to govern one's thoughts when everything seems lost. By the time we are finished here tonight, you will know exactly how to begin building such a mind that cannot be bent by defeat, poisoned by fear, or softened by comfort. But before we proceed, I must give you a warning. The enemy is not the world. The enemy is not your employer, nor your neighbor, nor your past. The enemy sits quietly between your ears. The enemy is an undisciplined mind, a mind that drifts wherever fear commands it to go. And so, from this moment forward, we begin a new kind of battle, not against men nor against the world, but against weakness itself. You are about to learn how to forge a mind that does not collapse under pressure, a mind that holds steady when storms rage, a mind that cannot and will not be defeated. Now take a deep breath. Clear every other thought from your mind, because tonight we begin the building of an undefeated mind. Most men live their entire lives in quiet defeat. They rise in the morning already weary of the day. They go to their work with a heart full of complaint. And when night comes, they seek escape rather than rest. Their lips speak of bad luck, of unfair chances, of men richer or wiser than they, yet never once do they stop to see the real prison they inhabit, the prison of their own mind. I have studied such men for decades. Their thoughts are filled with self-pity. Why must I suffer? Their speech drips with doubt. Perhaps I was never meant for more. They compare, they envy, they excuse, and slowly, day by day, their spirit grows smaller until they no longer need to be defeated by others. They defeat themselves before the battle even begins. You must understand this. The mind is never neutral. It is always under command. Either you direct it or fear does. Either you shape it or circumstance does. There is no middle ground. The man who believes he can think a little negatively without consequence is like a sailor who believes he can drift a little off course and still reach the right shore. A mind without direction is like a ship without a rudder. The waves of fear and doubt will carry it wherever they please. It will wander aimlessly, not because it was built to fail, but because it has no captain awake at the helm. I have seen the same pattern again and again. Men born with intelligence, with health, with talent, yet all wasted because they allowed their minds to drift. That word, drifting, is one of the most dangerous states a human being can enter. A drifting mind does not belong to its owner. It becomes the property of whatever influence happens to blow upon it. Gossip, worry, envy, despair. Imagine a fortress with open gates and no guards. Anyone may walk in, thief, beggar, or enemy soldier. Such is the mind of the drifter. Without discipline, without purpose, without vigilance, he invites invasion from every passing thought. You may look at your past failures and think they were caused by chance or circumstance. But I tell you this truth, Every defeat you have ever suffered was first an inner surrender. The moment your mind accepted limitation, the body followed. The instant you believed that you could not, life agreed with you. No man was ever broken by the blows of life alone. He was broken by the voice within that whispered, "It is useless to try." So tonight I ask you to make a declaration, a quiet but eternal vow between you and your own spirit. Say it with me, slowly and with meaning. From this moment, I refuse to drift. You are the captain of your soul, and the time has come to reclaim the helm. The winds of life will not stop blowing, but from this day forward, they will move you where you choose to go. No mind can remain strong without a purpose. A man without purpose is like a lantern with no flame. He may possess the structure of potential, but he sheds no light. Purpose is the fire that gives meaning to effort, that transforms struggle into progress, and that keeps a man alive when the world grows cold. When I first met Andrew Carnegie, he spoke not of wealth, but of vision. His eyes burned with an image of a world built stronger through steel. Bridges, buildings, railroads, each one a testament to progress. He saw it long before it existed. And because that vision consumed him, because it became the very rhythm of his thoughts, the universe itself seemed to conspire in his favor. Thomas Edison, too, carried such a fire. Night after night he worked in darkness, chasing the dream of bringing light to the world. He failed hundreds of times, but he never considered quitting. For the man who lives through purpose does not measure progress by comfort, but by conviction. His defeats were not defeats. They were steps on the road to fulfillment. Purpose, my friend, is both anchor and shield. It holds you steady when the tides of doubt try to drag you away. It guards you when fear whispers that you are not enough. Without it, you drift from task to task, never finishing, never believing, never standing long enough to grow roots. But with it, with a clear, burning, definite chief aim, every moment of struggle becomes sacred, every failure becomes fuel, and every dawn brings direction. The human mind craves command. It needs something larger than comfort to serve. If you do not give it a mission, it will serve your fears instead. So I ask you now, what is your purpose? Not what others expect of you, not what seems possible, but what calls you, what burns quietly inside even when you try to silence it. Take a moment and write it down. One sentence, one vision, one great aim that makes your heart beat faster. It must be definite, not vague dreams of happiness or success, but a single clear direction that you will give your life to. When you have written it, speak it aloud every morning and every night. Do not merely read it, declare it, speak it as a general speaks to his army, as a creator commands the elements of his destiny. At first, your voice may tremble, but in time it will strengthen. And as your voice grows stronger, so too will your faith. Understand this. Repetition with emotion engraves truth upon the subconscious mind. The more you repeat your purpose, the more it becomes not just a thought, but your very identity. Each morning, rise and say aloud, "My mind serves one great purpose, and therefore it cannot be easily broken." Let this be your vow. Let it burn so deeply that no amount of failure can shake it loose. For when a man serves one clear purpose, the world itself begins to move aside for him. Faith, my friend, is not blind belief. It is directed confidence, the quiet but immovable conviction that regardless of appearances, the outcome you seek already belongs to you. It is not wishful thinking. It is disciplined trust. It is the decision to hold your vision steady, even when the eyes can see nothing but defeat. In my years of study, I found that every man of power, every builder of empires, possessed one common thread: faith under fire. When others doubted, they believed. When others retreated, they advanced. When evidence said impossible, they smiled and said, "Watch me." Andrew Carnegie, when he began his steel enterprise, was surrounded by men who said his dream was madness. "You cannot mass-produce steel," they told him. "It is too costly, too slow, too uncertain." But Carnegie's faith was not built on what was. It was built on what could be. And so he held his vision long enough for the world to catch up. Thomas Edison, after hundreds of failed experiments, was once asked how he could endure so many disappointments. He replied calmly, I have not failed. I have simply found 10,000 ways that will not work. That is faith under fire, not the denial of failure, but the refusal to interpret it as defeat. I have seen it again and again. The moment a man decides that failure is not final, something within him awakens. The world may still doubt him, but his own mind becomes a fortress. Remember this eternal law. Every defeat carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Let me illustrate this truth. Some years ago, I met a young entrepreneur who had invested every dollar he owned into a business that collapsed within 6 months. He lost everything: his money, his partners, his confidence. For weeks he walked the streets in despair, cursing his fate. But one night, after reading these very words, that within every adversity lies a seed of greater opportunity, he decided to look for that seed. He revisited every mistake, every lost client, every failed negotiation. In doing so, he discovered a pattern, a simple but powerful gap in the market that no one had noticed. With his last bit of credit, he built a new service around that idea. Within 2 years, he had not only recovered his losses, but multiplied them tenfold. When I asked him what changed, he said, "I stopped asking why did this happen to me and started asking how is this preparing me." That, my friend, is the difference between a mind that collapses and a mind that conquers. One curses the fire, the other forges itself in it. Faith is not the absence of fear, it is the mastery of it. Faith is the calm voice that says, "This too shall serve me." You must train your mind to respond to defeat, not with despair, but with curiosity. When something fails, do not cry out, "Why me?" Instead ask, "What lesson hides within this?" Because once you find it, the very thing that threatened to break you becomes your advantage. Faith, then, is a choice, not an emotion. It is the conscious decision to believe before the evidence appears, and once a man decides to believe, the evidence always follows. So tonight, let this be your declaration. I do not ask if I will succeed. I decide that I will and adjust until I do. Speak it until it becomes law in your heart. For the man who decides with faith cannot be defeated, he can only be refined. The third pillar of an undefeated mind is one of the greatest discoveries of my life, the law of autosuggestion. I came upon this truth after years of observing men who rose from nothing to greatness and others who sank from promise to ruin. The difference, I found, was not merely in action, but in the words they continually spoke to themselves. Let me put this in simple terms. Your subconscious mind is like fertile soil. It does not choose what it accepts. It grows whatever is planted in it. If you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and self-pity, you will harvest weakness, hesitation, and failure. But if you plant faith, courage, and purpose, you will reap strength, persistence, and success. Every word you repeat to yourself, silently or aloud, is a command to your subconscious. It listens faithfully and obeys without question. When a man says, "I can't do this," his subconscious answers, "As you wish." When he says, "This is impossible," it replies, "Then we shall not attempt it." But when he declares, "I will find a way," the subconscious begins immediately to search for that way, drawing upon memory, intuition, and unseen opportunity. The mind is always listening, and over time it becomes the echo of your most repeated thoughts. Observe the difference between 2 men I once knew. One rose each morning saying, "Nothing ever works for me." His speech was filled with complaint, and his days reflected it, full of obstacles, disappointments, and missed chances. The other man, though no richer nor wiser at the start, greeted the dawn with a different voice. "Every day, in every way, I am improving." He faced the same struggles, yet somehow opportunities seemed to appear. People seemed drawn to help him, and within a few short years, his entire life had transformed. This is no accident. It is law. The subconscious cannot distinguish between truth and falsehood. It simply acts upon what it is told with feeling. You are, at this very moment, the product of what you have been consistently saying to yourself. Change the words, and in time, you change the man. Now let me give you a simple but powerful formula. Your daily practice of autosuggestion. Each morning upon waking and each night before sleep, speak these 9 sentences aloud with calm authority and emotion. 3 about identity. I am strong in mind and steady in purpose. I am the master of my thoughts, and the captain of my soul. I am becoming more disciplined, more focused, and more certain every day. 3, about purpose. My mind serves one great aim, and all my powers align with it. Every event, good or bad, moves me closer to my goal. I attract the ideas, people, and strength I need to fulfill my purpose. 3, about perseverance. I do not quit. I learn. I adapt. I continue. Every setback strengthens my resolve. I rise each time I fall, stronger than before. Speak them slowly, with feeling. Feel each word as though it were already true. At first, your old thoughts will resist. They will whisper, "This is foolish. This is untrue." But remember, repetition with emotion is stronger than doubt. Each repetition etches a new pattern into your subconscious, and soon those thoughts will become automatic. The man who once had to force belief will one day find belief flowing naturally through him. Now take a deep breath. Let us affirm together, slowly, I am strong in mind and steady in purpose. I am the master of my thoughts and the captain of my soul. I rise each time I fall, stronger than before. Repeat these words until your voice no longer trembles, until your subconscious accepts them as law. For when your inner speech becomes disciplined, your outer life follows its command. Discipline, my friend, is the great divider between those who dream of strength and those who become strong. You cannot build an undefeated mind upon undisciplined habits. A fortress is not raised by chance. It is built brick by brick, with patience, consistency, and command. I have met many men who possessed ambition but lacked discipline, and so their potential burned out like a candle in the wind. They waited to feel ready, to feel inspired, to feel something before they acted. But the man who waits for perfect emotion will wait forever. Understand this well. Feelings are weather. Purpose is the climate. The man who allows moods to rule him will be tossed about by every passing wind. Enthusiasm one day, despair the next. But the man who rules his feelings through discipline commands both mind and destiny. When I studied the great builders of our age, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, Schwab, I found that none of them achieved greatness because they felt like it. They worked tired. They worked criticized. They worked when hope seemed to have abandoned them. They worked without applause, without comfort, without certainty. Edison once told me, "I do not wait for the mood to invent. I begin, and the mood follows." That is the secret. Action precedes emotion. Discipline creates energy. It does not wait for it. When you act in spite of weariness, when you speak power in spite of doubt, when you rise in spite of defeat, you are training your mind to obey you. That is what separates a free man from a slave. The undisciplined man serves his impulses. The disciplined man commands them. Let me give you a simple law. Act as if you were already the man you wish to become. If you wish to be courageous, act as though courage already fills your heart. If you wish to be confident, stand as though confidence already courses through your veins. If you wish to be disciplined, behave as though discipline were your nature. The body and mind soon align with what is repeatedly acted out. Behavior becomes identity. Now, to train this pillar within yourself, I give you a simple code, 3 daily exercises that will build the muscle of discipline over emotion. First, each day complete one action even when you do not feel like it. It may be a task you have postponed, a duty you have avoided. Finish it simply to prove that your will commands your body. Second, each day resist one temptation. It may be the impulse to speak when silence is wiser, to rest when work calls, to complain when gratitude is due. Each act of restraint strengthens the iron of your will. Third, each day, replace one complaint with gratitude. The defeated mind sees problems. The disciplined mind sees preparation. The man who gives thanks where others curse is already rich in spirit. Do this for 30 days, and you will begin to notice a profound shift. Your moods will lose their power over you. You will begin to act not because you feel like it, but because you decide to. And that, my friend, is mastery. The world belongs to the man who moves forward when his feelings say stop. Now speak this with me, slowly and with conviction. I do not obey moods, I obey mission. Let it sink deep into your being, for the day you stop obeying emotion and start obeying purpose, that is the day your mind becomes truly undefeatable. No mind, however strong, can remain undefeated for long if it lives surrounded by defeat. The thoughts you allow, the voices you entertain, the company you keep, these form the atmosphere in which your mind breathes. And just as no man can stay healthy while inhaling poison, no mind can stay powerful while absorbing the weakness of others. I have met men of great potential whose minds were ruined not by lack of will, but by poor environment. They spent their hours among complainers, cynics, and cowards, men who mocked ambition and praised mediocrity. Soon their fire dimmed, their faith faltered, and their dreams withered under the slow suffocation of negative influence. Understand this. Environment is stronger than will. You may resist a day, a week, even a month. But if you live in a mental swamp long enough, you will begin to sink with it. There are two kinds of company in this world, those who strengthen your purpose and those who drain it. The first group challenges you to grow, reminds you of your vision, speaks truth even when it stings, and celebrates your victories without envy. The second group whispers fear, magnifies failure, laughs at discipline, and poisons every dream with doubt. You must learn to tell them apart. You owe no loyalty to voices that sabotage your destiny. When I studied the rise of Andrew Carnegie, I discovered one of his greatest secrets, the master mind. He surrounded himself with men of intelligence, courage, and integrity, each strong in a field where he himself was not. They met not to flatter one another, but to sharpen one another. They argued, they planned, they dreamed, and through that harmony of purpose, a magnetic current of power was created, greater than any one man alone could summon. That is the essence of the master mind, the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony toward a definite purpose. When two or more minds meet in perfect alignment, they generate an invisible force, a third mind through which ideas, energy, and opportunity begin to flow with astonishing speed. But what if, you may ask, I have no one yet who shares my vision? Then create your own invisible council. This was a practice I once used myself. Each night, I would sit in quiet reflection and imagine that I was at a table with the men I most admired. Carnegie, Edison, Lincoln, and others. I would speak to them in my mind, seek their counsel, and imagine their answers. Over time, the wisdom I received from this inner circle guided many of my greatest decisions. The mind is powerful enough to create companionship where none yet exists, and as you begin to think in harmony with greatness, you will attract living men and women of the same caliber. For like attracts like. A disciplined, purposeful mind will never remain long among the weak. It will draw its own allies by natural law. So choose your influences as carefully as you would choose the food you eat or the air you breathe. Read the words of those who lift your spirit. Listen to those who believe in discipline, courage, and faith. Speak only with those who would rather build than destroy. Now close your eyes for a moment and say this with me, calmly but with conviction. I walk with those who lift my mind. I release those who pull it down. Let that be your compass in every friendship, partnership, and alliance, for the man who surrounds himself with strength, purpose, and harmony will never walk alone, and his mind will never be defeated. Adversity, my friend, is the great sculptor of men. It carves away weakness, laziness, and illusion, leaving only what is solid, what is real. Yet most men curse the hand that shapes them. They see struggle as misfortune, when in truth it is the forge where strength is made. I have watched this truth unfold time and again. The weak man meets hardship and cries, "Why me?" The invincible man meets the same trial and asks, "What is this teaching me?" That difference in question changes everything. You see, the weak man seeks escape. The strong man seeks meaning. The weak man looks for someone to blame. The strong man looks for something to build. And as a result, while one drowns in self-pity, the other rises upon the very wave that tried to sink him. Let me tell you something I learned through long observation. No man is ever defeated by circumstances, only by his interpretation of them. Take, for instance, a story I once heard about a young inventor. He created a machine he believed would change his industry. Yet when he presented it, every investor mocked him. They told him it would never work, that it was foolish and impractical. The rejection crushed him for a while, but instead of surrendering, he decided to ask himself, "What is this teaching me?" He realized he had been trying to sell an idea too soon. to men too blind to see its value. So he refined it, perfected it, and years later, that very invention became the foundation of a company that employed hundreds. The same rejection that once humiliated him had been the teacher that guided him toward mastery. Here lies a law that few ever grasp. Every adversity carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But that seed must be discovered and nurtured. It will not reveal itself to the man who complains. It opens only to the man who looks at difficulty through the lens of growth. I have seen this same truth in the life of a merchant who lost everything in a fire. His store, his savings, his livelihood, gone overnight. He could have fallen into despair, but instead he said, "If this were a blessing in disguise, how would it serve me?" That question led him to rebuild not just a store, but a business model far stronger than before. He began insuring his goods, diversifying his trade, and eventually he prospered beyond what he could have dreamed before the fire. Adversity is not the end, it is the instruction. The lesson is hidden inside the pain, waiting for the man who dares to ask the right question. So when misfortune strikes, do not rush to curse it. Pause, breathe, and ask with calm authority, "If this were a blessing in disguise, how would it serve me?" The moment you ask that question with sincerity, the mind shifts from victim to victor. You move from paralysis to power. Now let us turn inward for a brief visualization. Close your eyes. Imagine before you a scene from your recent past, something that brought disappointment or loss. See it clearly. Feel the weight of it for a moment. Now above it, imagine a faint golden light. The lesson, the seed of growth, hidden within that event. Watch as the light expands, filling the entire memory, transforming its pain into wisdom. You see now that it was not meant to destroy you, but to shape you. Take a deep breath. Feel your chest rise as that realization settles in. Whisper this to yourself, "Nothing happens to me, everything happens for my growth." Repeat it until it feels like truth. For the man who believes that every hardship carries instruction, that every wound hides wisdom, that every delay conceals direction, that man can never be defeated. He turns the stones that block his path into the very steps that lead him forward. Remember this. Adversity does not visit to destroy you. It comes to introduce you to the strength that was waiting within you all along. Now, my friend, I invite you to close your eyes. Let the noise of the world fade away for a while. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Again, inhale and release. Let your shoulders drop. Let the weight of the day fall from you like dust from a traveler's coat. Your hands, your jaw, your brow, all softening. You are safe here. You are calm. You are awake inside. Now imagine that before you stretches a vast mountain. Its peak rises above the clouds, silent and strong. The air is clear, cool, and ancient. You begin to climb. Each step feels certain, deliberate, steady. You are moving towards something sacred, a place that has always belonged to you. At last, you reach a great iron gate. Beyond it stands a fortress, towering, unshakable, built of stone that seems older than time. This, my friend, is the fortress of the unbreakable mind. Walk closer. The gates stand open, but as you step inside, you hear faint whispers from below the mountain, the voices of fear, of doubt, of hesitation. They cry out, "You are not enough. You will fail again. Turn back while you still can." But you do not run. You do not listen. You turn toward those voices, and with calm authority you say, "You no longer belong here." With that, the gates begin to close. Heavy, deliberate, final. As they do, a radiant light rises from the ground, forming walls of pure energy around the fortress. These walls do not keep the world out. They keep your focus in. Every fear that once entered freely now dissolves in the glow. Step forward. You are inside the fortress now. The floor beneath you hums with quiet power. Ahead, a corridor lined with torches stretches into the distance. On each side, great stone doors stand open, leading into chambers where the laws of an undefeated mind are engraved forever. Walk with me through them. The first chamber bears the word purpose carved deep into its walls. You trace your fingers across the letters and remember your definite chief aim, the reason you rise each morning, the thought that commands your life. You whisper, "My mind serves one great purpose, and therefore it cannot be broken." The second chamber glows faintly, faith. In the center burns a steady flame, neither trembling nor dimming. This is your faith, not blind belief, but directed confidence. You say softly, I do not ask if I will succeed. I decide that I will, and adjust until I do. The third chamber is built of iron and silence. Discipline. Here you see a hammer and an anvil. Upon them lies your old self, lazy, hesitant, ruled by emotion. You watch as the hammer strikes, shaping that self into steel. You whisper, I do not obey moods. I obey mission. The fourth chamber radiates a softer light. Autosuggestion. On a pedestal lies a simple book, its pages blank. You understand this is your mind, ready to be written upon. You open it, and each breath writes a truth. I am strong in mind and steady in purpose. I am the master of my thoughts and the captain of my soul. I rise each time I fall, stronger than before. The fifth chamber hums with quiet endurance. Persistence. You see a wall of stone with the marks of countless attempts. Each strike, each effort, each failure that became a step forward. You run your hand along it and feel your own history of resilience. You whisper, I do not shrink under pressure. I am shaped by it. Now, at the end of the corridor, a final door stands waiting. You push it open and step into a vast hall filled with light that seems alive. At the far end stands a figure, tall, calm, radiant. You realize it is you, your highest self, your invincible mind made manifest. This being walks toward you with quiet certainty and places in your hands two symbols. First, a shield, engraved with the words faith and purpose. It reflects every fear, every lie, every attack from the world. Then, a sword, inscribed with decision and discipline. It is not a weapon of destruction, but of clarity, to cut through doubt, confusion, and hesitation. Your higher self looks into your eyes and says, you are already the fortress. You are already the strength you seek. The walls, the shield, the sword, they were never outside of you. They were within you all along. Now breathe deeply once more. Feel the power of that truth settle into every cell of your being. Repeat silently with your breath. I am strong. I am steady. I am focused. I am disciplined. I am faithful. I am unbreakable. With each inhale, your mind fortifies. With each exhale, your fears dissolve. You turn toward the great doors again. The light follows you, filling your chest, your hands, your thoughts. You walk back through the corridor, past the chambers. Purpose, faith, discipline, autosuggestion, persistence, and each one glows brighter as you pass. When you reach the gate, it opens without resistance. The mountain air greets you once more, clean and still. But now, you realize something profound. The fortress does not stay behind you. It moves with you. It lives in you. Take one final breath, and when you open your eyes, remember this. The fortress is not outside of you. It is you. Let me tell you, my friend, that these principles are not theory. They are laws, living, breathing, unbreakable. And to prove it, allow me to share with you a few true stories of transformation, stories of men and women who, by applying these very pillars, turned their darkness into light and their defeat into triumph. The first is the story of Samuel. When I met Samuel, he was a quiet man working in a small office, overworked, underpaid, and deeply convinced that life had conspired against him. Every morning he would arrive with his shoulders slumped, his mind repeating the same lament, nothing ever changes. I'm stuck here forever. He blamed the economy, his boss, his luck. He thought of himself as a victim of circumstance, until one day, after hearing my lecture on the power of autosuggestion, he decided to test it. Each morning, before work, he stood before a mirror and spoke 3 sentences aloud. I am capable of growth. My mind creates opportunity. I will advance by serving beyond expectation. He did this for 30 days. No magic, no miracles. Just daily repetition with emotion. Slowly, his posture changed. His tone changed. His results changed. He began suggesting improvements at work, taking initiative without permission, serving clients with unusual care. Within 6 months, the same company that ignored him offered him a promotion. Not because the world had changed, but because he had. Samuel's victory was not in his salary. It was in his mind. He applied the third pillar, autosuggestion, and turned his inner dialogue from a weapon against himself into a tool for creation. The second story belongs to Elena. She was a widow with 2 children, struggling to survive after her husband's passing. Her days were filled with fear. Fear of failure, fear of hunger, fear of tomorrow. But fear, I have always said, is the tax the weak pay for not trusting their own power. Elena decided she would no longer pay it. She began reading her definite chief aim aloud each morning. I will provide for my family with dignity and faith. With nothing but her hands and an old sewing machine, she started repairing clothes for her neighbors. At first, the income was small, barely enough to buy bread, but she kept her faith under fire. The second pillar, trusting that every defeat carried the seed of benefit. She worked late, prayed often, and refused to surrender to despair. Months passed. Her craftsmanship drew attention. Her customers multiplied. What began as a survival effort became a thriving little business. And when I asked her what changed, she smiled and said, "I stopped waiting for rescue. I became the rescuer. That, my friend, is faith in motion. The strength of a mind that refuses to break." And then there was David, a young man, barely 20, burdened by invisible chains, not of poverty, but of hopelessness. He told me his mind felt like a battlefield, filled with constant noise, doubts, and fears that he could not silence. I told him something simple: environment is stronger than will. He looked at me confused. So I explained, you cannot grow roses in a swamp. Change your soil, and you will change your growth. He followed the advice literally. He stopped spending nights among those who complained. He began each morning in silence, reading words of strength and writing his own affirmations. He joined a small study group of men with ambition, building what I call a master mind. In 3 months, the light returned to his eyes. His depression did not vanish overnight, but it weakened with every day of discipline. He began exercising, learning a trade, and planning his future. The boy who once whispered, "I can't," now declared with certainty, "I will." David rebuilt himself with the fifth pillar, environment and influence, proving that a man becomes the company he keeps, even if that company exists only in his thoughts. Samuel, Elena, David, ordinary names, ordinary people, yet their transformations were extraordinary, not because they were chosen by fortune, but because they chose to apply the laws. One used autosuggestion to rebuild belief. One used faith and purpose to rise from fear. One used environment and discipline to conquer despair. Each of them lived the truth I have taught my entire life. The mind, when governed by law, becomes the architect of destiny. They were not exceptions to the rule. They were demonstrations of it. And so, if you have ever doubted that change is possible, let these stories stand as living proof that the fortress of the undefeated mind can be built by anyone, including you. Now, as we come to the close of this journey, let us gather every truth, every law, every principle you have heard and felt tonight. Understand this first. To build a mind that cannot be defeated is not a single act of strength. It is a daily training of spirit. It is a discipline of thought, a devotion to purpose, a vow renewed each morning and each night. A man does not become unbreakable by chance, nor by comfort. He becomes unbreakable through practice, deliberate, patient, unwavering. So let us summarize the pillars that form this fortress within you. Purpose, the central flame. Without it, the mind drifts. With it, every thought and action align like soldiers obeying command. Faith, the bridge between the unseen and the realized. When all evidence fails, faith holds the line. Autosuggestion, the builder's tool. Each word you repeat becomes a brick in your inner structure. Each thought, a beam of strength. Discipline, the steel of the structure. Emotion may tremble, but discipline stands. Environment and influence, the climate in which your mind grows. Keep only the voices that speak life and courage. Reframing adversity, the fire that forges character. Nothing is wasted. All things serve the one who decides to grow. Persistence, the seal upon it all. To continue when others stop is the mark of a master. These, my friend, are not theories. They are the laws by which every great mind has ever risen. So now, I will ask you to breathe, slowly, deeply, and repeat after me this final declaration, not as words, but as a personal decree. I was not born to live defeated. My mind is my kingdom. I decide its laws. And from this day forward, I am building a mind that cannot be conquered. Let those words echo inside you. Feel them settle into the foundations of your being. You are no longer a passenger of chance. You are the commander of thought. You are no longer a servant of fear. You are the architect of faith. You are no longer waiting for strength. You are becoming it. From this night onward, every doubt will find you fortified. Every hardship will find you ready. Every whisper of defeat will fall silent before your resolve. For you now possess what few men ever discover, not a secret, but a system. Not inspiration, but instruction. And as you rise tomorrow, let your first thought be steady and clear. My mind obeys me. Carry that thought as your armor. Live by it as your creed. Because the world does not conquer the man who commands himself, the man with a disciplined mind, the man with faith unbroken, the man with a definite purpose. That man cannot be defeated. And my friend, that man is you.